Hello, Troy Marsh here with Marsh Home Group. Thanks for jumping on for a quick April 2021 market update. I wanted to talk really briefly about the current market. So, we're seeing inventory, meaning the number of homes for sale, down 53% compared to the same time last year. And that's even more significant because last April we were really in major shutdown mode because of COVID. So if you think back and compare that with back in 2019, it's even more so a decrease in inventory. What does that mean to you as a seller in this market? Well, whenever I talk about selling a home, I always talk about the fact that we have to sell a home 5 times before it actually gets to closing. The first way that we need to sell it is we have to sell it to the agent. And in this market, that's really important because agents are having to run out every time a property comes on the market, and then they're one of 15 offers. If you have 5 clients, obviously you can see how that can be very stressful. It can take away from family life. So the agent's always going to be looking and comparing each property drastically to that buyer's criteria. The second person that we have to sell it to is the obvious one, right? The buyer. So we still do have to make sure that the home is presentable. However, in this market, the buyers are way less picky. So there's an advantage, especially if you're somebody that has a home that maybe sits in a less desirable location, like maybe backs to power lines or backs to a busy road, or maybe you need to do some updates that you've kind of been putting off. Those are things that sometimes in this market you can get away with not doing. The third person we have to sell it to is the home inspector. One of the great things about this market, although not always by any means, a lot of buyers are choosing to waive their home inspection. So because of waiving the home inspection, it obviously does 2 things. Number one, it increases the amount of money you as the seller take to the closing table or get at the closing table because you're not spending money on repairs. And it also takes away one of the stress points that typically for a lot of sellers can be the biggest stress point of selling your house. The fourth person that you have to sell it to, unless it's a cash buyer, is the appraiser. Again, what we're seeing a couple things happening in this market. Number one, we're seeing appraisal waivers, which actually if a buyer is putting down 20% or more, there's a certain number that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac say if you go at or below this number, we will give you an appraisal waiver, meaning we don't have to do an appraisal. But even if you do an appraisal, a lot of buyers are doing what's called appraisal gap coverage, and that's basically protecting you in case the seller or in case the appraisal comes in below what the contract price is. So that's not an always thing, but it's certainly something that we're seeing way more often in this environment. The last person is probably the least commonly thought of, and that is we have to sell the home to the bank underwriter. Now, for us, a lot of that work is done up front, right? We are calling out and proactively kind of pre-qualifying the lender if we haven't worked with them, and at the very least checking in to make sure there's no information that they're waiting on from the buyer. However, the underwriter is also going to be not only looking at the qualifications, but they also do review the appraisal. So if there's something about the appraisal that seems a little off, the underwriter can actually force the appraiser to make changes to that appraisal, which could sometimes impact value or repairs that might be needed prior to selling. So that's a quick idea of what things look like as a seller in April of 2021. Certainly, if you want to go through more information or you want to know what your home is worth in this crazy market that we're in right now, please don't hesitate to give us a call or shoot us a message or a DM wherever you're watching this. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch it, and I will talk to you soon.